Welcome back. Thank you for staying with us. Prime Minister and Minister for Finance, Economic Growth, Job Creation, External Affairs and the Public Service, Allen Chastanet, will on Tuesday, the 28th of April 2020, present St. Lucia's estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2020-2021. This will follow the opening of the 5th session of the 11th Parliament on Tuesday morning, where members of the House of Assembly will meet at 10 a.m. and members of the Senate will meet at 10:30 a.m., after which both houses will be in joint session to receive the throne speech via video feed from His Excellency the Governor-General, Sir Emmanuel Neville Snack. The Standing Finance Committee will meet in closed session at 2 p.m. to review the estimates of revenue and expenditure, following which at 4 p.m. the Prime Minister will lay the estimates before the House of Assembly. In keeping with the protocols established by authorities for management of COVID-19, members of the public will not be allowed in the chamber gallery during the sittings. Prime Minister Allen Chastanet is expected to address the nation on the implications of meeting the government's financial obligation to public servants by way of full cash salary payments. The administration has highlighted its need to conserve cash to meet its financial commitments or end up in default on its loans, which would in turn spell even greater disaster for the economy. The government of St. Lucia continues the dialogue with trade unions on the current economic crisis facing the country and the world and the need to make drastic adjustments in the current COVID-19 climate. The government has confirmed that it paid all public servants full cash salaries for April on Thursday, the 23rd of April. But the government's senior communications officer, Nicole MacDonald, has indicated that this has had a significant impact on the fiscal position of the country.
In order for the government to make the payment of salaries in all cash in April, the government was forced to increase its overdraft and incur further debt. The Ministry of Finance is currently dealing with compounding issues: extremely low revenue intake, significantly high debt repayments, and additional financial resources which needed to be allocated to managing COVID-19. Hence, the proposal of a blended payment to public servants of part cash and part treasury bills.
Discussions are expected to continue with unions and the Special Ministerial Subcommittee set up by Cabinet, which includes Minister for Labour Stephenson King as chairperson, along with Minister for Equity Leonard Montoute and Minister for Commerce Bradley Felix. MacDonald also stressed, just as the Prime Minister did on Tuesday, that what is being proposed is not a pay cut for the public sector.
At no time did the administration propose any form of pay cuts, and the government is honoring the collective agreement with public servants. What was proposed in discussions with the Ministry of Finance and the unions was paying public officers part in cash and part in bonds or treasury bills for a 3-month period. This is due to the fact that the government must conserve cash at this time in order for St. Lucia to meet its commitments, or we would find ourselves in default, which would have even more dire consequences for our country in the long term.
It has been promised that the Prime Minister will address the nation before next week on this issue and will also speak to the impact on the economy of making the full cash salary payments in April. Independent Senator Adrian Auger made it clear in the Senate on Thursday that the NIC owes the people of St. Lucia an assessment of how it plans to meet the financial obligation that government has placed on it at this time. He expressed several serious concerns about incompleteness of information and the uncertainty of the proposed amendment. He called on the NIC to function in a manner that is upright and principled to bring clarity and calm to the people of St. Lucia during this time of crisis. He called for answers about where the money is coming from and what measures have been put in place to safeguard public money from what he described as the beady little eyes of people who are broke. Economist and independent Senator Adrian Ogier says the government, and even more so the NIC board, have left many questions unanswered about the proposed NIC amendment, which will allow for a fund to roll out assistance to unemployed St. Lucians during the COVID-19 crisis. He says by now, an impact assessment should at least be presented to the people.
There is uncertainty, for example, and it has been mentioned before, so this is not news. There is uncertainty about how much, there is uncertainty about how long, there are no regulations laid, and I know that normally comes after, but these are not normal times, and this is not our money. This is not our money. There are no controls which are mentioned, financial controls that is. This is not a ministry budget. This is the earnings of 50 years of St. Lucian citizens put into trust under a board. And you know, there's a reason why the board is so construed. Because the architects of the National Provident Fund knew full well the temptation that a pool of resources of that magnitude would have for ministers of finance, that they would be attracted to it every night and unaccountable for it by day. And so the provisions of the Act sought to insulate the NIC from that sort of interference. And we must not now frustrate that.
He says the principle of the matter is that the NIC, first established as the National Providence Fund, is the sole custodian of 5 decades of the savings of St. Lucian workers, and the responsibility to be able to provide with interest those funds to the people when they have a legitimate claim is sacred. He says the NIC cannot continue to be treated as an easy cash outlet for governments.
It is not the responsibility of the NIC to anticipate or to compensate for the cash flow problems of the government. It is not, and no amount of arguing will make me think that it is. So, Madam President, it is therefore the responsibility of the NIC, and I think my quarrel is really the NIC. It is not necessarily with the Minister of Finance who is looking for money wherever he can get it. My quarrel is with the NIC. Because you are the keepers and the custodians of these funds, and you need to put in place measures which are sufficiently stringent, that they prevent, that they guide, that they control the beady little eyes of people who are broke.
The senator called on the NIC to fulfill its fiduciary responsibility to apply internationally accepted standards to determine what amount of money can be safely made available to the government for this cause of COVID-19 relief.
The NIC board has done an assessment of its assets, liquid and illiquid, short-term and long-term, and can say to the people of St. Lucia whose money they are responsible for, we have done the math, and we can afford to spare X dollars, and this is how we are going to make the X dollars available, over what period of time and for what purposes.
He cautioned that the right thing should not be done in the wrong way on this issue of COVID-19 response. Meanwhile, the senator questioned why the government did not choose to establish an unemployment benefit under the NIC, as opposed to making an amendment for extraordinary circumstances. Senator Adrian Ogier is of the view that an unemployment benefit would be a better solution to the government's current predicament, rather than the proposed legislation to amend the NIC Act. But that, he says, would depend on the source of funding for the NIC COVID-19 rescue package. He says it is disturbing that the NIC has not disclosed the source of the funding for the next 3 months. The answer to that question, he says, could hold the key to future social protection for the country.
Where do the resources come from? Is it from reserves? Is it from cash flow? Which I doubt, because at $90 million a year, that's only about $8 million a month. Is it coming from profits? Is it returns on investments? This has to be disclosed. It has to be disclosed because each of those sources has a different set of future implications for subscribers. And that's the only people we are accountable to. If it is reserves, then we might well establish an unemployment fund that we've been talking about for the longest while. Because if the NIC is sitting on $80 or $100 million that it can afford to give away on short-term notice, then the unemployment fund that we have been debating and have not had the fortitude or forthrightness to establish all these many years, then we could establish it tomorrow.
Senator Oje says by adding an unemployment benefit, it would become part of the standard operations of the NIC and not some exceptional mechanism to be invoked.
Instead of creating an economic disaster fund, or whatever we propose to call it, create the unemployment benefit, because that is what you are trying to achieve. What is this roundabout mechanism when you can go directly to just add another category of benefit to the existing benefits which are already in the legislation? It would be so much simpler, so much more translucent, so much easier to manage. You just add another benefit called an unemployment benefit. You allocate a percentage of your resources to that benefit.
He highlighted that thousands are either without pay or a significant portion of their pay, and those in the latter bracket also need support.
If somebody is working half as often, it will still put their mortgage in jeopardy. It will still put their rent in jeopardy, which is a mortgage for somebody else. It will still put their children's education and nutrition in jeopardy. It will put their vehicle and house insurance in jeopardy. So why do we not have, and please correct me if I'm wrong, a mechanism by which somebody whose income is only partially affected would be able to benefit under this proposal?
He stated that there is no need to buy a new vehicle to get to the same destination, but on a longer route, which is what he likened the NIC amendment to. A local bar owner is expressing concern about an alarming trend that he says he has witnessed with his own eyes. People in desperate need of a drink, he says, are turning to dangerous alternatives, one of which he claims is hand sanitizer. A medical practitioner is cautioning against such a dangerous practice. Genevieve Gonzague reports.
In an effort to ensure the public complied with all social distancing protocol, liquor licenses were suspended effective March 30th. There has been numerous complaints about the effects that going cold turkey can have on an alcoholic. Reports have been coming in that people have been drinking hand sanitizer and other spirits. We spoke to a bar owner who observed the practice.
A local bar owner, Carrington Compton, says he has observed persons purchasing hand sanitizers from drugstores and reselling them as alcohol.
They have guys that selling the sanitizer selling in the drugstore as rum. People drinking that just like if it is natural rum.
The bar owner says this dangerous practice has to be stopped.
A lady had drinking too, and she falls sick. But that they go in the drugstore and buy the hand sanitizers and selling it as rum now. That's not good. We have to put a stop to that.
We also spoke to a medical practitioner who gave the various effects such a practice could have on the human body.
General practitioner Dr. Kedma Daw explained that the levels of alcohol in the hand sanitizers and spirits, such as rubbing alcohol, when compared to rum, are a lot higher and may affect the body quicker and worse.
The alcohol that we drink is ethanol, and in many of the local hand sanitizers, it's a similar alcohol. Biggest difference is the concentration. Okay, so if we were to drink the alcohol in the hand sanitizers, which is very strong or very concentrated, it would first of all cause us to get drunk quicker, all right? But most importantly, it will cause damage to our cells at a rate that many times we, the healthcare providers, might not be able to reverse in time.
Dr. Daw explained the body cannot handle alcohol above 40%. He further went on to explain that the chemicals used as fragrance for the various spirits and alcohols are not for consumption.
The alcohol that we consume, the most you would see if you were to look at the label, is about 40%. All right, so generally the body cannot handle alcohol that's stronger than 40%. And if you notice, the recommendations by WHO is to have the hand sanitizers with alcohol 70%. Okay, so please, public, do not consume this. Those other chemicals that are added to those sanitizers are also not good for us. Okay?
The doctor explained that consumption of these products may lead to nausea, vomiting, damage of the stomach and intestines, and blindness. He says he understands that there is a ban on alcohol, but the public should find other means of dealing with their cravings like exercising and eating fruit. Dr. Daw said COVID-19 affects your respiratory system and not stomach, so products for the skin should only be used there.
Take-home message is, if you were to think about it, what's made for the skin was made for the skin. All right, it's generally stronger because the germs on the outside, we want to kill it. That's why it's 70 proof or 70%.
The general practitioner is imploring for persons to put an immediate stop to the consumption of hand sanitizer. Reporting for Hot 7 News, I am Genevieve Gonzague.
This is the Hot 7 TV Nightly News. There's more coming up after the break.